Let's get the latest data dumped by WikiLeaks. One exchange in these emails shows Clinton ally and her campaign chairman allegedly clashing over the infamous email server. The purported conversation took place between Neera Tanden and John Podesta. In it, Tanden allegedly writes the subject, "I highly recommend," followed by she, meaning Clinton, "start making some other more positive news soon." Podesta sarcastically responds, "Yeah, that's great advice. Really?" He allegedly continued, calling out several Clinton staffers, saying, "Speaking of transparency, our friends David Kendall, Cheryl Mills, and Philippe Reines sure weren't forthcoming on the facts here. All three worked at the State Department with Clinton." Tanden allegedly added, "This is a Cheryl special. You know you love her, but this stuff is like her Achilles heel or kryptonite. She just can't say no to this," followed by an expletive. Tanden later allegedly asked why Clinton's team didn't get information about the server out sooner before allegedly responding, "I guess I know the answer. They wanted to get away with it." Again, these emails have not been independently authenticated by NBC News. The Clinton campaign and U.S. intelligence officials have continued to blame Russia for the hacking of these alleged emails. I mean, it looks like some people wanted to do the right thing, but it's always too late. I don't know.
I don't know. You see an internal battle between Hillary Clinton's old guard and people like Podesta and Robbie Mook and others who want transparency.
Yeah, this is nothing new.
Who want transparency
in the Clinton universe. This is nothing new. Neera Tanden's, missive supposedly to Podesta about Cheryl Mills and a group of people around Hillary Clinton for 15, 20, 25 years. Their idea is to hide things, to obstruct anybody from finding out things. If they had dumped this email story out 2 years ago, it wouldn't be hounding her every single day. Every single day.
Yeah, but the question is...
And when they did actually I'm sorry, but there was this big press conference, and I just remember it was sort of the most offensive.
It's horrible.
The speeches, the Wall Street speeches. I've seen portions of a transcript of one of the speeches. You know what's contained in it? You come away realizing, she
really
actually knows how the real economy works.
I thought that too. When I finally read a portion, I thought,
that's all.
She will
Why
actually
not get them out? This paranoia about it just...
That's what they've been there 30 years. How ironic that they've been fearing the WikiLeaks releases and saying, the Russians are not. Well, I'm sure the Russians are involved in it, but the great irony at the end of it is you read everything that Podesta's been sending around, and you're left thinking. I mean, and I'm sure there's something out there where he says, he kicks dogs and then eats them for dinner. So I'm sorry if there's something I haven't read. I apologize, Ed. But it makes me think Podesta's a straight shooter.
And Robbie Mook.
Campaign-wise, these people want her to be more transparent. They want her to stop acting the way she's going to act. Podesta saying basically, hey, listen, if my integrity is going to be questioned, if I'm setting myself up for this, then I'm out. And they all are as dumbfounded as I am and as a lot of Americans are on why Cheryl Mills is allowed to continue to circle around Hillary Clinton and basically make all of the bad judgment calls, play into all of her worst instincts, and make everybody else's job around the campaign harder.
And on top of what Podesta said about Cheryl Mills, you had the other day Robbie Mook's email where he says to Podesta in an email, I'm not playing this game. I'm not doing this secretive stuff. So if you want to do it, go ahead, but I'm not going to be a part of it. But it's interesting, as Nicole said earlier, we're getting now an open look at what we assume was happening inside the campaign, which is that most of the campaign felt the way the rest of the world was. It was dumb to have a private server, and it was dumb not to get out and apologize for it.
And it's always and here's what, we're talking about staff because it's sort of like inside the palace intrigue. But here's the story. The story is the candidate. She chooses who to surround herself with. So to the degree that questions about whether it'll be the enablers, and it's not just what they do, it's their instincts. They reinforce her instinct for secrecy. So it's interesting. Most people in America will never know who Cheryl Mills is, but it's what it tells you about the candidate.
Right.
And if she sides with the people who reinforce her worst instincts, it says something ominous about the beginning of her presidency.
And have kept this election close. If Clinton world looks at the advice that Cheryl Mills and Kendall and Philippe Reigns have given her over the years, and then look at where she sits today as less trusted and perceived as being less honest than Donald J. Trump? John Podesta and Robbie Mook wouldn't have gotten you in that position. Cheryl Mills did.
Right. The narrowness of this election, even at this point in some states, and the contentiousness about the WikiLeaks email drops and the email server itself prove the dangers, potentially fatal, of an overly protective palace guard. It's just your duty to a candidate or a president, I would think, would be to tell the president the bad news first. Here's the bad news, Mr. President or Madam President or the candidate. The bad news first.
Gene Robinson, let me ask you this. Does this ring true with you, what Joe is saying, that perhaps Hillary Clinton is where she is despite people like Cheryl Mills as opposed to because of them?
Look, I don't think her inner circle has served her well in that, as Nicole said, that inner circle reinforces this idea of less than full disclosure, of less than full transparency, when in fact, when she is transparent, when you do see what's going on around her and how she's communicating and what she knows and how her mind works, it's very good for her.
Has the inner circle hurt her honest and trustworthy numbers?
No, I think so, because they give the impression there's something that needs to be hidden, even if there's nothing there. Even if
wait a minute, we don't know that there's nothing there. I'm just saying a private server is a serious thing.
Right. No,
we don't know
the private server they never should have done, as I've written many times, and they should have come clean on immediately and just gotten it out there and just said, gee, I never should have done that. I'm sorry. That was a real mistake. And I wanted to have control of all my communications, and I shouldn't have done that, and I'll never do anything like that again.
So I'm going to take the onus off Hillary Clinton for a second and think, I have these people working for me. I want a private server. I have been so beaten up over the past 3 decades. I have been through so much. Makes sense for me to get a private server. Maybe that was her logic. Wouldn't that be your logic?
If
you were Hillary, I would think
that would be my logic.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Then the people around me would say, you can't do that.
Right.
It's against policy. You'll get killed for this. If you ever run for president, this, I mean, where are these people? Because I would want a private server. I would at least consider it.
Right.
I would put it in the options of something I might do.
And that makes
if I were
sense.
her.
But you have to have people around you that tell you
you can't
no.
do that.
Well, let
it
me
can't
ask
be
you
done.
a question as you make this decision about your private server, whether to have it or not. Do you view the media as an enemy or an adversary?
Both, I guess, if you're Hillary Clinton.
I think unfortunately the small private circle around Secretary Clinton views the media as an enemy.
Well, therefore, they should protect her and say, you cannot have a private server, the media will kill you.
Right.
Okay, you can't have a private server. You can't. I'm very sorry, with all due respect, this isn't happening. And if you are doing this, I'm leaving because you're not listening to me.
Nicole,
those are the people that you need around you.
When did you go work for George W. Bush?
When? I went to
what year?
Before inauguration.
Before inauguration. What was the toughest moment where you had to go in and say no?
Oh, boy.
I was sitting here thinking about it. I know exactly what it was. It was a Friday. He was getting ready to leave for the weekend, and we called them the Slicks. The news magazines still broke really big stories that then would drive the Sunday shows, which sounds like old-fashioned times, but which would then sort of shape our whole week. And there was I don't want to use the word massacre, but there was a mass killing in a town called Haditha, and the military had been involved in it, and the story broke, I think, in Newsweek, and if it was Time, I'm sorry, Time, but it broke in one of the magazines, and J.D. Crouch, who was Steve Hadley's deputy, and we were sort of the B team. The A team had left for the day, and we had to walk into the Oval Office and tell the president, and it was a State Department issue. We thought there might be protests and riots and violence against American embassies around the world, and President was was furious that it had happened. He was sad. He was sick. And I want to carve out Philippe, because my understanding of Philippe's role is that even in that inner circle, Philippe was often the one that would explain to her in explicit terms exactly how the press would receive it. So I don't see Philippe.
So you're saying Philippe, unlike Cheryl Mills and David Kendall, Philippe is not
my understanding is that going back very early in Clinton world, it fell to Philippe to tell her exactly how the press would process her decision.
So he was straightforward.
So my understanding of Philippe's role inside the inner circle is of articulating exactly how the press would process her decisions. But it almost always comes through the fork of a press person, because you're breaking the news to a candidate about something the press has discovered, something the press has learned. In the case of Haditha, which was one of the worst moments and one of the worst stories I went in and told the president, it was something the press knew before we did. And those are horrible sort of collisions between a truth and something a politician doesn't want to deal with. And it almost always falls to the press people to walk in there and tell them horrible news that makes them, really unhappy with you, the press staffer.
Changes everything.
But it's usually about something else. And I think this conversation will go on well beyond Election Day, and if she wins, into who she surrounds herself with.
Oh, yeah.
Really important stuff. Not about the
staffers, have been there for a
but
long
about
time.
the politician and about the principal.
If she gets elected, it will determine whether she's a one-term president or a two-term president. I don't want to be too.
Really central.
I don't want to be too overly dramatic.
I mean,
but will Hillary Clinton be pursued and dogged by the press for the next 4 years because she goes into a bunker because of the people she puts around her? Or will she have people like John Podesta and Robbie Mook and others who
Philippe.
If Philippe's for transparency, and Philippe. So I really do. It will make a big determination on what type of presidency she has.
All right.